Everything that you hate about the United States, every single thing, no matter who you are, it's going to trace back to the fact that people in our country, a lot of people, are trying to keep minorities out and keep minorities from having good things. And that's why everyone's being harmed. Y'all, we are 10 years out from present day with this Heritage Foundation series. We are moving through each mandate for leadership, and we are up to Trump #1. It's just the Trump administration that comes into power in 2017. And to recap what we've talked about Obama. I can't recap everything. Go back and watch videos. But to recap their thoughts on Obama, they fucking hated him, right? And I kind of breezed through the Obama years because they didn't have any mandates for leaderships. These mandates for leaderships won't come out until 2016, and it comes out in 3 parts. So let's talk a little bit more about what happened in that 2010 to 2016 era, right? Because it's really important to understand what's going on right now. And not all of it is directly correlated to the Heritage Foundation, but a lot of it is happening concurrently, and you need to know. Okay, so we didn't really touch on marriage equality. That's fucking huge. In 2015, Obergefell goes to the Supreme Court. We get marriage equality. So this is 4 years after Don't Ask, Don't Tell is repealed. So there's obviously a military aspect to this, but also marriage equality is a point to fire up the moral majority and the evangelicals. And I'll remind you that the Heritage Foundation co-founder, Paul Weyrich, also helped found the moral majority with Jerry Falwell. Now, in 2010, Heritage Action is founded directly in response to the Affordable Care Act. And Heritage Action is organized work. It's activism. Their first thing is like a 15-day campaign against the Affordable Care Act, trying to get it repealed. Even though the Affordable Care Act is based on Mitt Romney's Massachusetts Affordable Care Act, which is based on the Heritage Foundation. With Heritage Action and with the Heritage Foundation, this causes some internal strife. The president of the Heritage Foundation at the time is Jim DeWitt, and he's going to be the president from 2013 to 2017, and he's actually going to be ousted. He gets mixed reviews, right? Some people say he does really great because he increases fundraising and things like that. But with the new Heritage Action and this like activism involved, then there's basically there's a power struggle, right? And we have another power struggle like that today that we will talk about as we get towards the end of this series between, Kevin Roberts and other people. But this is an important thing to know, right? Heritage Action is creating more partisan actions, which from externally, the Heritage Foundation at this point in time doesn't want to look like they're partisan. They're fucking partisan, but they don't want to look like. So he gets ousted. Ed Feulner gets put back in. Ed Feulner is the other co-founder with Paul Weyrich, the only one that's alive at this point in time because Paul Weyrich did pass away just 1 month after Obama was elected. Chef's kiss. Couldn't write that myself. Right. And it's important to understand that this time period is like massive to what is happening right now in our country, right? Because concurrently running with this is REDMAP. REDMAP is short for Redistricting Majority Project. So for about $30 million, the Republican Party invests into a bunch of state races. The state races dictate who runs the state, right? Oh, I hope you know that. If you follow me on Patreon, I hope you know that. So when 2012 rolls around, these redistricted areas, the 2010 census happens, right? They redistrict in 2011. The Republicans have the majority. They gerrymander the ever-living shit out of it. So in 2012, in the midterms of 2012, Democrats get 1.4 million more votes than Republicans do, but Republicans hold the House majority by 33 votes. 33 votes. Now, this isn't a directive from the Heritage Foundation, but it's working in their favor. They want the Republicans to have more power. It's perfect, right? And then, of course, in 2012 as well, Citizens United is overturned. So for any of our big, Powell memo heads, this is huge because now the corporations have the free speech to give money to campaigns the way that they want to, which is an insane amount, right? If you don't remember, the Powell memo is written in 1971. This is the memo that starts it all. It's leaked in 72. Powell becomes a Supreme Court justice under Nixon, and he's like a former battle axe for the big tobacco industry. And so this is huge. This is doing exactly what the Powell memo prescribed, is getting businesses involved in our politics. which is part of the reason we're in the position we're in today, as is REDMAP. Okay, I think we're caught up. I can't tell you how much I hate this series. I never want to think about the Heritage Foundation people ever again. Unfortunately, we're going to all have to think about them constantly, right? So everything that you hate about the United States, every single thing, no matter who you are, it's going to trace back to the fact that people in our country, a lot of people, are trying to keep minorities out and keep minorities from having good things. And that's why everyone's being harmed. Because if we had equality across the board, if everyone had access to all the same things, then life would be better for all of us. And the Heritage Foundation, as you know, if you're following this series, that is my hypothesis, that the Heritage Foundation was created in response to the civil rights movement in an effort to make sure that Black Americans could not succeed in the way that they wanted to. So onwards to 2016, we are going to do a full breakdown of all the things that we've learned at the end and all of the things I missed, because obviously I'm missing shit left, right, and sideways. I'm fucking dying. But the Heritage Foundation puts out 3 different segments in 2016. March of 2016 is a blueprint for balance. This is focused on the 2017 budget, federal budget, right? It's including things like reducing taxes by 1.3 trillion over 10 years, balancing the budget in 7 years, reducing spending 10.5 trillion, and cutting the deficit by 9.2 billion in 10 years. You have to remember that these people want to always reduce taxes, increase defense spending, and still balance the budget, which means they need to cut things out of the budget that are going to help people that they don't like, right? So this budget balance proposal is talking about cutting literally like so many different regulatory agencies, like the EPA. They want to cut back constantly. They want to halt union-related regulations. They want to block new overtime regulations. They want to repeal the Davis-Bacon Act, which is the prevailing wage law. They want to, in schools, they want to eliminate free lunch programs and nutritional standards. They want to repeal so many things, and these are all things that help people get ahead in life. These are all things that equal the playing field, right? If you're a really poor kid, but you get free lunch, that means you're going to have a better chance of getting educated. And when you get educated, you can go to college and you can get a better job and you can do all of these things. But it starts with getting fed at school. So when they're talking about balancing the budget, reducing taxes for their rich best friends who get to donate to the Heritage Foundation, and increasing defense spending, it only works if they're cutting out everything that helps the American people. That's right. Okay, so that's about balancing the budget, right? The second thing is July 16th. This is the blueprint for reform. Now, the blueprint for reform is the second part of the mandate for leadership that gets put out in July 2016. And this is going to focus on like the index of economic freedom, right? We've been talking about that. And also the index of culture and opportunity. And then, of course, the index of military strength. It is a comprehensive policy agenda. Basically, it's trying to, again, reduce the debt, because Barack Obama increased the debt so much. And the reason he had to do this was because of all those bailouts. That's part of it. Many other things, right? They, of course, herald pro-growth tax reform. This is a direct quote from the Heritage Foundation's website, right? The tax system should raise the revenue necessary to fund a limited government at the lowest level possible for constitutionally appropriate activities. But the current U.S. tax system is outdated and extracts too much from the private economy. The tax system should apply the least economically destructive forms of taxation, have low rates on a broad base, minimize interference with operation of the free market and free enterprise, and minimize the cost of compliance for taxpayers. It should also minimize adverse impact on the core institution of civil society. So again, they're talking about removing regulations. They're talking about removing consumer protections. They're talking about shredding the EPA. They want to also get rid of HUD, housing and urban development. They want to balance the budget. They want to reduce regulatory burden. This is all coming from their website. You can find all of these sources and including some of the things I quoted earlier in the written portion of the Patreon. And of course, they really want to repeal the ACA, which is Obamacare, and Dodd-Frank, which is the financial regulatory things that came out of the 2008 crisis. And they want to spend more fucking money on the military. Now, there's a third part of this that comes out. The third part of this is in November of 2016, the blueprint for a new administration. This is part of why people and pundits and people who study political theory think that the administration was very effective in 2017 in the first couple of years, right? Because this was a transition document. Again, it goes back to reducing the budget, balancing the budget, reducing the deficit, reducing taxes, increasing defense spending. They talk about gutting the EPA, removing HUD, removing free lunch programs, and all these things that help people. And that's the only way they can balance the budget if they're reducing taxes by 1.3 trillion over 10 years. It's the only way. It's not possible to reduce taxes, increase military spending, and also balance the budget. They have to cut out programs that help Americans. And it's just painfully obvious to me that they are trying to harm people. In the first administration, obviously, some notable things that happened under Trump are withdrawing from the Paris Climate Accords, leaving UNESCO, reinstating the Mexico City policy, right? This is abortion funding restrictions, increasing military spending by $54 billion, reshaping national monuments, tax reform. This is the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. And this is something that really affects a lot of us. It's crazy, right? When you saw your tax increased in 2021, it comes from this 2017 tax bill. Yeah, he pushed it out in case he lost so that you would blame someone else. He pushed it out to 2021, so if he lost, you would blame someone else. Obviously, he appointed people to the Supreme Court as well. And don't you worry, the list to choose people from came from the Heritage Foundation. The reason Roe v. Wade is overturned is because of the Supreme Court justices that were put on the Supreme Court. And that's the Heritage Foundation. Anyways, come back next week. We're going to talk about Biden's administration. Hopefully we'll get Trump's done next week too, so I can take some fucking time off over Christmas and not have to think about the Heritage Foundation. I'm fine. Everything's fine.